my. Wonder if we can adjust this. I could go with that, but it might be, I don't know, it might wobble quite a bit. It's not very stable right there. So let me keep moving this around until I get it to where I think I want it to be. All right. No, that doesn't feel very stable either. So, nope. Let's go here. All right. Guess we'll have to go with that. A little bit of light in here. And you know that sound. All right. Turn the AC down a little bit so you guys can hear me. Let's go. So, got to pull out the Acura again because I haven't driven it in a couple of days. And yeah, as I've said numerous times, I'm alternating both of the cars, mainly to keep this Acura running. Because any car will die if it just sits and it's not being utilized. Excuse me. So let's get on with the introduction. Yo, what is good, everybody? It is the Godfather of Gaming, the Ageless Wonder, the VR King of the Crumb Side, your boy Lincoln Clay, coming back at you with another video. Shout out to everybody who tuned in to my Beat Saber stream this morning. I feel a lot better after getting that cardio in. I feel much better. Also, thanks to everyone who watched my Is It Time for Phil to Go video. Because if this if video games worked the way football did, Phil Spencer would have been fired by now. With football, basketball, baseball, the major sports, when a new coach is hired, or even a new GM, I think GM's probably got a little bit more leeway than coaches. Coaches got about a 4-year window to make improvements, to show signs of improvements, and to show that the team's headed in the right direction. I think general managers, they probably got a 7 to 10 year leash. So if Phil Spencer would have been a head coach, he definitely would have been fired by now. If he was a general manager, he would probably still have his job, but he would probably be on the hot seat right now. So I personally feel that the Xbox brand has gone backwards under his watch. So anyway, enough with that. We're here to talk about VR today. You know, I think a couple of days ago on Twitter, I posted a link to an article where Shohei Yoshida, head of PlayStation, talked about PSVR is growing, but they still have a lot to learn. Okay, you know, that's great. PSVR is going to grow, but excuse me, there's a level that I think PSVR needs to get to, not only to help itself, but to help the VR industry as a whole. VR enthusiasts like myself, they want to see VR grow, and I think they would like to see VR get to the mainstream. And they all believe, they all have their opinions of what it's going to take to get to the mainstream. You know, for instance, Quest lovers, Oculus Quest lovers, you know, they would love to see the Oculus Quest go mainstream, and probably the VR industry as a whole, they would love to see go mainstream. But as far as the Quest goes, they probably have their opinions that the Quest needs to do X, Y, and Z to get to the level where they want it to be at. In my case, I want to see the VR grow. I want to see the VR industry grow, and I want to see the PlayStation VR grow. But I also believe they need to do X, Y, and Z in order to get, you know, in order to get to that next level, and to help the industry out as well. Take a drink here. I still believe that PlayStation VR is still the market leader. Last time we got some numbers from them, I think they were sitting at 4.2 million headsets sold. I would like to think, and that was months ago. I would like to think that by now they might be sitting on 4.4 million maybe, but at the same time, they haven't really, in my opinion, I don't think they really did any kind of promos until recently, you know, because I think you've got the, I think there's Borderlands 2 bundles out there. And I think before that, I'm not sure if they did a Blood and Truth bundle or not, but that's it. They haven't really done a lot lately. You know, we're beyond, as far as PlayStation VR goes, we're beyond the hardcore. Any VR enthusiasts and any hardcore VR gamers already own the PlayStation VR. To me, there's no more people left to bring into your ecosystem as far as hardcore gamers go. You know, now it's the casual gamers. You know, and I'm sure that is the end goal, is for the PlayStation VR to reach its... What a doofus. Dude nearly ran out in front of my car. Flea markets. Let me go in there and check it out and see what they got. Get out of this bus lane. But yeah, I think the only people really left now is to try to get as many casual gamers as possible. Damn, a two-door Lincoln. Looked like a 73 Lincoln or something like that. Man. So yeah, the casual gamers is all that's left. And the only way you're going to draw them in, said it yesterday during my other videos, price, price, price. That's how you're going to draw them in. So, you know, I'm sure Sony knows what they're doing. And I'm sure Sony is satisfied with the pace that PlayStation VR is moving. Because I think if they would have felt like it, you know, sales were slower than they want them to be, or if they were desperate, they would have, you know, they would have rolled out all kinds of bundles by now. And I'm sure they're going to roll out some kind of bundle. You know, when the Ironman VR releases. Speaking of Ironman VR, I need to change subjects for a second, but I'm going to come back to that. Tuesday, September 24th, we have the next Sony State of Play. I don't know what they have planned, but I do hope that we will get release dates for Ironman VR and Golem. Those are two PlayStation VR exclusives. We haven't seen a lot on Golem, but we've seen a few, we've seen a little bit on Ironman VR. And I hope we get release dates on that. And I don't know, I guess The Last of Us 2 is also going to be part of this state of play. I don't think they'll give it to us, but it'd be nice if we get a date for The Last of Us 2 as well. The only thing I can say about that is, some people think that The Last of Us 2 is going to be a PS5 game. I don't think that is the case. I think they're going to release The Last of Us 2 right before the generation ends, before they can do a double dip. They release it on the PS4, it sells like hotcakes, and then a few months after that, the PS5 releases, and then people come back and buy it for the PS5 so they can get that PS5 patch with those enhanced graphics. Oh, excuse me. God, I'm burping a lot today. Please excuse me, folks. Also, on September 25th and September 26th, we have Oculus Connect 6. I believe this is, pretty much Oculus having their, I don't know if I want to call it like a Nintendo, similar to a Nintendo Direct, but yeah, this is going to be Oculus Connect 6. I think we can expect to see some of the things we can expect to see there. People are speculating that we're going to see this first-person shooter game that Respawn is working on for Oculus, and I guess they're going to have a playable demo there. So I'm looking forward to finding out what this first-person shooter is. As we know, Respawn did Apex Legends and did Titanfall, which I think all are good games. So it'll be interesting to see what this first-person shooters game is going to be all about. So I'm really looking forward to that. There's also other YouTubers are speculating that Oculus will probably talk about the success of the Oculus Quest. Unless they sold over 1 million, I don't think they'll give us any numbers. But what I'm hoping for out of Oculus Connect 6, I'm hoping that we get a date. I'm hoping that we get a release date for Lone Echo 2, and I'm hoping that we get a release date for Asgard's Wrath. I guess maybe the other game that I'd like to see a release date for would be Deathlap. That is a VR game that's coming up. It's going to be on the Quest. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on the Rift too. I'm not sure, but I'm sure at some point it will be if it doesn't happen day and date with the Quest. That is a VR game that looks like it has similarities to Twisted Metal. So I'm kind of looking forward to that game. And, unless it costs $40 or $50, I think I'll more than likely pick it up. So that's what I got for State of Play and Oculus Connect 6. Let's get back to this PlayStation thing, talking about what I think needs to happen in order for PlayStation to help itself and help the VR industry as a whole. And I talked earlier about VR enthusiasts. They have their opinions on the current state of VR, the industry as a whole, and where they would like to see it go. And you guys have heard me say it numerous times, what I would like to see with VR as a whole. I'd like to see it go mainstream. As far as games goes, I'd like to see, this is what I wanted to see when I finally decided that I was in for the long haul on VR. I wanted to see fully playable racing games, check. Fully playable first-person shooter games, check. We got that. Fully playable sports games, we're not there yet. We have bits and pieces of sports games. We have bits and pieces of football games, bits and pieces of baseball games, you know, a couple of tidbits of hockey and basketball. The major sports, hockey, football, basketball, and baseball, I want to see all those games fully playable in VR. And for that to happen, VR has to go mainstream, because I think for us, I would like to see those games fully playable from the major publishers, you know, from the AAA publishers. I would like to see EA, 2K, you know, San Diego Studios, which I think I would like to think that if they could do it, San Diego Studios would give us a fully playable MLB The Show in VR. I mean, they've been asked that question once. If MLB The Show would come to VR, and they said that they were looking into it because they were exploring as many options as possible. So I would like to think that that's one of the games. I sincerely hope we see that. I think out of the major sports, I think that's the one that we have the best chance of happening. Sony believes in VR. They're standing behind VR. They're moving forward with VR. They're promising bigger and better experiences, next generation in VR. So as far as any of the major sports being playable in VR, the best chance of it happening is through Sony. But for the others, EA, 2K, for them to get on board, they have to see VR as a gold mine. And that's why, you know, VR needs to go mainstream, so these AAA publishers can see that it's a lot of money in VR, because that's what drives people like 2K and EA. The money is what drives them. They're not going to get involved in VR so they can take chances or try to deliver a compelling experience to us. No, they ain't going to get involved in VR until they see there's a ton of money that can be made in it. Excuse me. So I think one of the things that needs to happen for Sony to continue to help VR go to the mainstream is, I've set a stretch goal. People might think I'm crazy for wanting this stretch goal, but I think one of the things that would be huge in moving the industry forward is if Sony can hit 6 million VR headsets sold by the time the PS5 releases. You know, I would like to think that they're sitting on 4.5 million headsets sold right now. You know, and again, they've been slow these past few months with promos and bundles and that kind of stuff. But I want to take a shot in the dark and say that Ironman VR is going to release probably, if it's going to happen this year, I want to make a guess that it's probably going to happen in November. Not too far away from Thanksgiving. Ooh, saw a couple of cars. I might have to circle back and check those out. But I'm hoping that Ironman VR will be a system seller. I did believe that No Man's Sky would be a system seller. I really don't know how well No Man's Sky has performed on the PlayStation VR. I mean, but those that play it like it. So that's my stretch goal. I'm almost certain that Sony can hit 5 million headsets sold by the time the PS5 releases, but I'd like to see them hit 6. And if they have 6 million headsets sold by the time the PS5 releases, it's only going to get better from there. I want to I want to believe that when the PS5 hits, that maybe by then the price of the PlayStation VR will have another permanent price cut. Well, I think I've gone far enough. I think it's time to circle back. Motor cells, huh? Woo, some of these vehicles here look rough. Cars with flat tires, dents. So, by the time the PS5 releases, I'm hoping that PlayStation VR has a permanent price of $200. I'm also hoping that Gran Turismo will be a launch game for the PS5 when it comes out. And I'm hoping that the VR will have a multiplayer. Because I at least think that'll get the racing enthusiast on board. But with Sony promising bigger and better experiences for VR next generation, it may take a while. It may take a while. It might take a few years, but it's definitely going to get better. And then another impact to be considered is when PlayStation VR 2 comes out. If it's a wireless headset. So I still think a VR headset with a cord is still better. But I finally loosened up to the idea of a wireless headset. But I think when PSVR 2 comes out, if that headset is wireless and it is reasonably priced, like say maybe $300, I think that's going to be huge. And if PlayStation VR 2 has enough power, there's actually some nice cars out here. If PlayStation 5 has enough power that, say, San Diego Studios can do MLB The Show fully playable in VR, I would like to think that just about half of people that like PlayStation, half of the people that like MLB The Show, they'll get on board and definitely try the VR mode. And I think that could set the tone for other major publishers like EA. If they see that that game is having success, I think that could set the tone for those guys to get on board. So I believe that several things have to happen. So let's review. I think if Sony can sell 6 million headsets by the time the PS5 comes out, that would be huge. When the PS5 comes out, games that are not possible right now, if they were to happen next generation, that would be huge. Like, excuse me again. Like, for instance, Horizon Zero Dawn 2, that's a given. That's coming. That's going to be a PlayStation 5 game. I don't know if it'll be a launch title, but even if it is, I don't expect to see that in VR. If they were to do it, it would probably look a little more watered down from the flat screen version. But I would like to hope that games, this current gen games that we're playing right now, I'm hoping that we can see those games in VR, like what Bethesda's doing right now. They're redoing last gen games in VR with like Doom and Skyrim, those are last gen games, and they redid them in VR, and I think Skyrim did all right actually. Fallout 4, I'm not sure if that's a last gen game or not. That is also in VR. So as much as I don't care for Bethesda, I do applaud them for taking some of their AAA titles and redoing them in VR, because that's one of the things I definitely want to see is more AAA titles. But I don't want AAA titles to dominate the landscape, because there's going to be microtransactions everywhere you turn. But current gen games, like for instance, the current Horizon Zero Dawn, there was a rumor that a company might be working on, doing that game in VR. And if they were to do that game in VR and they were to put it on the PS5, that would definitely, in my opinion, that would definitely be a headset seller. So if you have Horizon Zero Dawn fully playable in VR, and then the current VR headset right now is down to a permanent price of $200, that's gonna move some headsets off the shelf, because we all know how well Horizon Zero Dawn did. I don't know if they would have plans for it, but in games like the current God of War, if they would redo that in VR, I'm sure that would sell a few headsets. The current Spider-Man game, oh shit, if they were to redo that in VR, being able to swing through the city in VR, that would definitely sell a few headsets. So all this would play a part in VR moving towards the mainstream. So at the end of the day, it's going to take you and me to make this happen. As a content creator, I have to do my part to continue to push VR, to continue to promote it. And I have to do my part, as well as other VR enthusiasts. We have to do our part to show everybody what an amazing experience that VR is. And that's going to be critical in getting more and more people on board with VR. Because the more people that get on board with VR, the closer we come to my hopes that we'll see fully playable sports titles in VR. So, if it comes down to it, I've said it before, it doesn't necessarily have to be one of the major sports. It doesn't have to be a Madden. It doesn't have to be NBA 2K. Just give us some kind of fully playable game, football game in VR. And that something like that can still set the tone for EA to take note. But I'm sure they're watching, because we know what drives EA. We know what drives 2K is money. And if they see that there's money to be made in VR, they will get on board. So I think that's about all I got. Feel free to let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Currently, the current state of PlayStation VR, yes. Well, not just PlayStation VR. My biggest issue with PlayStation VR is I would like to see more multiplayer games on the platform. But other than that, I'm good with PlayStation VR. The VR industry as a whole, I'm good with that because a lot of these indie developers right now, they have to be creative in order to sell their games. Like Beat Saber, for instance, that was a very creative, innovative game. But there's been many copycat games to come along right behind it. So there's only so many times that can be done. And these indie developers know it. They know they have to come with something different, something that hasn't been done for people to take interest in it. So that's one of the good things about the current state of VR, is that a lot of these indie developers are creative. So I'm almost at my destination, getting ready to go to the store, pick up a few things. But that's what we got. I think next week we got Aspire 1 releasing. I mean, there's a few games that's going to be releasing. Some of them have mildly caught my eye, but I would probably say Aspire 1 caught my eye, and there's another stealth, I think Splinter Cell type game called Panther. I don't know when that's coming, but that looks like another stealth-based game. It looks like it has some similarities to Aspire 1. I'll keep my eye on that, but definitely going to pick up Aspire 1. And then as far as today goes, I think right now my son is at home playing Minecraft Java Edition in VR. Can't believe how much interest that game still holds with people today. Because my son's been playing Minecraft flat screen and VR. And he wanted to stream it yesterday, but I got tired and fell asleep. So I will let him do it at some point today. So keep your eyes open for that. And I don't know. I feel like playing some Firewall today, but that could easily change if I end up getting tired. I mean, once I get back home, I got a few things I need to do. I got to get my chores done. And then I've got a couple of items that I need to sell, that I need to put on eBay. So that's part of the agenda